If you know all the phrases from today's English lesson, then you're a master of conversational English. Let's get started. We'll begin with some elementary English phrases. Do you know what it means if something slips someone's mind? I was going to buy milk at the store yesterday, but it slipped my mind. It means you forgot it, so this is a pretty simple idiom to say, I forgot to do it. And it's a great idiom to use. If you told a friend you were going to call them and wanted to talk, but you just got really busy and simply forgot, you unintentionally forgot. You could say, I meant to call you last night, but it slipped my mind. It means it slipped through my mind. I forgot accidentally. Next up. Do you know what it means to make a difference? There are many really wonderful people in the world trying to make a difference. So, if you have even the most basic level of English, you might know that to make a difference means to change something. But if you're advancing your English level, you might know that when Native American English speakers use this phrase, we're going to make a difference, it means we're going to make a positive change or have a positive impact. We like to encourage people with this phrase. So we might say, hey, it's important to recycle because it makes a difference for our planet or the environment. Many times, if we're asking people to donate their time or money to a charity. Maybe there are a lot of hungry people, and you say, hey, if you can donate a little bit of money, it would make a difference. We mean it would make a positive change or have a positive impact on the hungry people at that charity. If you're watching this English lesson, chances are you're not at an elementary English level because you can understand what I'm saying, and you're learning lots and lots of advanced phrases. So let's move on to the intermediate level and see if you know these next two phrases. To connect with someone. Do you know what it means to connect with someone? If you're thinking just in basic terms, not idiomatically. If you're connecting with someone, maybe you're literally linking arms. You're connected. That's actually not what we mean when we use this phrase. If you connect with someone, it means you have good conversations with them, or it means you get along well with them. If you're connecting with someone, it means you're forming a good relationship. Good teachers really connect with their students. They get to know them. They ask about their families. They ask about their likes and dislikes. So, when we speak English, how are we going to connect with someone, or we really want to connect with someone? It means we want to form a bond or a relationship with someone, like a friendship, and many times, we use this phrase in the negative. We say, I just don't connect with them. It means you don't have a good relationship, you don't have many good conversations, or shared interests with the person you don't connect with. Sometimes, if you're at work or you have a large family, someone will get an idea to buy a gift for someone else, and they ask others to chip in. What does it mean to ask people to chip in? This phrase to chip in means to contribute, and often it means money. But we can also talk about contributing our effort and our work as well. So, again, going back to my original example, if you were at work and it's your boss's birthday, sometimes all the employees will chip in. It means they'll contribute a small amount of money so that you can collectively buy a larger gift. So everyone works together with their money to get a better gift because of everyone's contributions. Or, maybe you're cooking a really big meal. You're going to have a party, and you ask someone in your house, hey, could you chip in the kitchen right now? I really need some help. So you're asking them to chip in with the work so you can get ready for the party or get ready for dinner, or whatever it is. This phrase is really common, but I wouldn't be surprised if you've never heard it before. Do you know what it means to stall? Okay, so I'm not ready yet. Can you stall? If you're stalling, it usually means you're delaying or stopping something. So, again, maybe you're about to give a big presentation, but your computer isn't loading the slides you need. So you ask the person who's on stage or at the front of the room, hey, can you stall for a minute? I'm trying to fix my computer. I'm trying to get it ready. So you're asking them to delay and kind of entertain whoever is listening for a couple of minutes so you can figure out your problem. Another way we use this word stall quite often, we use it like this: if our car stops working, and we're not quite sure why, hey, my car just stalled. I had to pull over to the side of the road, and I can't go anywhere. So usually you have to call a tow truck, or you have to call someone to bring you gas or whatever it is, to get your car going again after it stalls or stops. If you think someone is intentionally wasting time or trying to delay something, you might tell them, "Hey, don't stall, can you stop stalling?" It means stop delaying what we need to get done. Many of you watching this lesson are probably at the upper intermediate level. Let's look at some phrases you might know if you're at this level of English. Has anyone ever told you to keep something short? And do you know what that means? This phrase "to keep something short" means to try to make the story or whatever you're going to say not take up too much time or make it brief. If you know someone is busy, you might say, "Hey, I'm going to keep this short, but I have to tell you something really important." It means you're going to give them the brief summary. You're not going to tell them the long, full story right now. So, again, this common phrase is used when you're giving presentations or speaking in front of a group, and you want to make sure you're considerate of other people's time. We're going to keep today's meeting short. I'm going to keep it short for you. Hey, could you keep this short? We actually need to leave by 2 o'clock, assuming this was the unclear word. Has anyone ever unexpectedly popped in on you? Do you know what this phrase "to pop in on someone" means? Think for a minute. If you pop in on someone, it means you visit them, and usually, it's an informal visit. It's quite often unexpected, and it's very short. If your family is going to visit you, maybe your family lives in a different city or a different state than you, and they come to visit you just for a short time, and it's kind of unexpected. Or they didn't plan it very far in advance. You could say, "Oh, my family just kind of popped in on me. I wasn't expecting them." I mean, they show up, visit for a very short time. Do you know what it means to hinder someone or hinder something? This phrase can be thought of as slowing something down or kind of ruining something. Often, the weather can hinder our plans. So, for example, if we're going to have an outdoor party or an outdoor wedding, and it rains, it's going to hinder our plans, meaning it's going to kind of ruin the plan or make it not possible. Even if you're traveling, and you have a lot of delays, you could say, "The delays really hindered our travel plans." It just means it ruined them. It slowed them down. It just made them worse than we had planned. So to hinder is usually used in a very negative way. I hope you've been doing great so far with the phrases from the different levels. Let's move on to our advanced English phrases and words. And the first phrase is actually just a word. And it's used in a lot of different ways. Think if you know what it means when a native English speaker calls something exotic. When we say exotic, it can mean that it's unusual, or we haven't seen it before, it's unfamiliar, or we might even just mean that something is from a foreign place or a foreign country if we call it exotic. I think it can be quite rude for English speakers to say, "Oh, that's exotic," just because it's not from the United States. But one way we use it that I think is perfectly acceptable is when we call food exotic to us. We may not have tried these different, repetition in original, means, different flavors, different vegetables. People think that in the United States, we have a very bland diet. So when we have food from different places, sometimes it seems exotic to us. If you don't know the next phrase, give it a shot, alright. The phrase is to give something a shot. Someone might tell you, "Hey, I know you've never tried this before, but give it a shot." This phrase means to give something a chance or to try it. And kind of approach it with an open mind. So maybe you've never done yoga before, and you think, "I don't need to go to a class just to stretch." Someone who likes yoga might say, "Hey, just give it a shot." It means try it. Try it with an open mind because you might be surprised that you like it. If you're going to try something, but you don't believe you can actually do it, or you have little faith that you will succeed, you might say, "Hey, I don't know if I can get this job, but I'm going to apply. I'm just going to give it a shot," meaning I'm going to try, even though I might fail. So it's a really positive phrase meaning you're going to try something with an open mind or just try something very optimistically. You're going to give it a shot. Do you know what it means when something is beneath you, or you say something is beneath someone else? With this phrase, we're saying that something is unworthy of us, or we are too good for something. Let me give you a couple of examples to help you understand this phrase because, again, it's advanced. This phrase gets hard to use in real English conversation when you're not a native speaker and not used to it. Maybe you start a new job, you're an assistant, and it's a corporate work environment, and the boss tells you your job is to get coffee for everyone. You might think that job is beneath me, meaning I'm too good for this job, I have a lot of skills. Maybe you went to school for a long time and have a lot of work experience. You shouldn't be getting coffee. It's beneath you. Meaning, are you saying that this job is for someone who gets paid less or someone who doesn't have the experience I have? One thing about me is that no job is beneath me, I've always been a hard worker. In college, I had a job cleaning up after concerts. Yeah, I was like the janitor. I cleaned toilets. I mopped floors. It was a dirty job. It was a really hard job, but it was never beneath me. There are a lot of people who think that type of work is beneath them, but in my opinion, everyone should have to work those types of hard jobs because it gives you a true respect for work and makes you a hardworking person. It makes you someone who is passionate about not having jobs that are beneath you. So it means you respect the work. Nothing is beneath you. Let's move on to our fluent level phrases. Do you know what it means when someone says they are all in on something? This phrase means you are fully committed or dedicated to something. So maybe the boss says, "Hey, we're going to try this plan at work." If you want to say you're fully committed, you believe in it. You want to be very positive. We say, "I'm all in. Let's do it." In English, a nice compliment to give people, especially pregnant people, is to say they are glowing. You don't have to just use this phrase with pregnant people. We use it with many different people. This phrase just means that the person looks happy, they look confident, they look very healthy. Oh, you're glowing. Maybe the person says, "I just got back from vacation. I feel very relaxed, and I have a nice tan." So you might physically look good when you're glowing, or you might just look confident and happy if you say someone is glowing. Do you know what it means when a native English speaker says, "I can get along without it"? This phrase gets a little tricky. This phrase means you can manage without something, or you can be successful without something that you might usually need. For example, I cannot get along without coffee. I cannot get along without coffee. But some people don't need coffee to feel energized and not feel tired, they can get along without it. The next phrase is to have ties to someone or to have ties to something. In this phrase, we use ties to mean connections to something. So if someone is a criminal, we might say they have ties to the gangs or ties to the mafias, criminal organizations. Or if you have a lot of connections in the career field you work in, you could say, "I have a lot of ties to different companies, now we're at the master level." I hope these master level phrases are helpful for you to learn. They are very difficult, so don't feel bad if you don't know them. The first one is slogan. Do you know what it means to have a slogan? A slogan is a short and catchy phrase. It's often used to advertise something, or if you say, "That is my slogan," it means, it's, words or phrases that encourage you that you kind of live by. Some of the most popular slogans in the world are Nike's "Just Do It" or McDonald's "I'm loving it." A good slogan is one you don't forget. Or sometimes I think of the Rolling Stones, their slogan should be "You can't always get what you want," because that's such a common phrase and such a popular song of theirs. Are you familiar with the next phrase? The phrase is to build rapport with someone. If you build a rapport, you're establishing trust in a relationship with someone. So often, when someone is trying to sell you something, they try to build a rapport with you. Maybe this person asks you personal questions. "Oh, do you have a family? Do you have a wife? Do you have a husband? Do you have kids?" They're trying to build a relationship and trust with you, just to sell you something. So I think that's kind of, slimy when salespeople try to build rapport just to get you to buy their product. But it is important to build rapport in many other situations. Build rapport with your coworkers, build rapport with your boss, build rapport just with your neighbors. It's establishing trust and building a relationship. That's what we mean when we use this phrase to build rapport or to have rapport. It means trust. A common phrase in English is the talk of the town. This phrase means something is very popular in the community. It doesn't necessarily mean literally the whole town or the whole city. You could be at work and say, everyone's talking about this. It's the talk of the town. The new employee is the talk of the town. They're so interesting. They're doing such a good job at their job, whatever it is. Our final phrase, if you're a master of English, you probably already know this phrase, to keep something to yourself. This phrase is used to mean keep a secret. We use this phrase totally interchangeably. But, it's kind of saying, keep this private. We don't want to say secret because sometimes secret has a negative connotation. If you keep secrets, maybe you're not trustworthy, or maybe you're kind of lying to other people. So sometimes we just say, hey, just keep this to yourself. It means don't tell everyone. Maybe you'll tell people later, but for now, it needs to be a secret. And it's a soft, gentler way to say, keep it secret. Keep this to yourself. Let's start with a phrase you've definitely heard floating around the internet. I say this phrase all the time, so it doesn't necessarily have to be just online. The phrase is it's a flop. So when we call something a flop, it means it didn't live up to the hype or the expectation. Meaning you thought it was going to work. You thought it was going to be great, fun, successful, exciting, and it didn't meet or match that expectation. Often, we say a movie was kind of a flop if we didn't enjoy it as much as we thought we would, especially when they're big movies that are exciting to see, the Avengers series or, movies that you just were looking forward to and you were waiting for them to come out. When they're not very good. It's kind of a flop. As a teacher, sometimes I think lessons are going to go really great. I think these words are really going to help my English learners. They're going to love this activity. They're going to love this. And if they don't understand, if they're confused, and it turns out I just didn't plan the lesson very well, I would say, I thought that lesson was kind of a flop, but keep watching because this lesson will not be a flop. Let's move on to the next slang phrase, I'm unwell. So we don't say this very seriously. It's kind of a humorous and exaggerated way to say, I'm either shocked, I'm excited, I'm overwhelmed. Let me give you a couple of examples. I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and some of the plot twists in that show left me unwell. After I watched an episode, I'd say, oh, I am unwell after that. So, obviously, it's just a TV show. It's not that serious, but it's just a funny way to say, like, that plot twist was so crazy, so unexpected, that I'm unwell, and we say it in a funny way. We say I'm unwell. When my brother got engaged, he and his beautiful wife did these photos in Hawaii of their engagement. And they were so beautiful. When I first saw them, I said, oh, I am unwell. Those are so nice. So again, it's a very dramatic way. You'll hear people say, they're surprised by something, impressed by it, whatever the emotion is. They're unwell because the emotion is just so strong. Let's talk about what it means to yap or yap. Okay, so this phrase, to yap, has been around for a while, but it's really gained popularity recently because we just started using it in this new, exciting, creative way. So usually, when you see, a little dog, and it's making small barking sounds, we call it a yappy little dog. That dog is yapping. So it's kind of annoying when you have a little dog that barks like that. They're yapping. Now, we can also say, to two people when they're just talking. They're not talking about anything serious. They might actually just be kind of annoying, not talking about anything important. We say they're yapping. We've said that for a while, but it's just gained popularity. So you should definitely know how to use this phrase and how it's used because you'll see it online all the time. When girls are just making videos, doing their nails, doing their hair, doing their makeup, and they're talking about some stuff that's just not very serious, just some interesting things to make a social media video. We might say, oh, I'm just watching some girly yap. If you have, too, people you work with, and you're good friends with them, don't use these phrases with people you don't know very well because this is slang, and this is informal speech, and your two coworkers are just talking, about their weekend. Nothing serious, but you're trying to get your work done, and you might say, hey guys, stop yapping over there. I'm trying to get my work done. So that's how we commonly use this new phrase to yap. It's new and old at the same time. A common slang phrase that just seems to keep being popular is to take an L, or when something is just an L. And of course, the L in this phrase means a loss. So maybe your favorite band or your favorite singer is in town, and you realize you weren't able to buy tickets. You say, "Oh, that's such an L, I wish I would have bought a ticket," so it just means it's a bad situation. It's a loss. You missed out on something. If you were supposed to bring your lunch or you didn't pack a lunch and you forgot it at home, you might be at work and say, "Oh, that's such an L. I forgot my lunch." So again, it just means we missed out on something, we made a mistake. We call it a loss. It's a slang phrase we use to say something is just unfortunate. It's a mistake we made. My husband hates when I use this phrase. The phrase is to give someone the ick. This phrase has definitely been popular for the last year or so, but I still use it. When someone does something that gives you the ick, it might be you lost attraction to them because they did something that either just grosses you out, or you can't quite explain why, but it gives you a feeling of like, "Ooh, I just don't like this person when they do this." Or it could be something, that just turns you off from the person. You don't want to be friends with them anymore because they did this thing. Some people really hate when people talk in a baby voice, and they're like, "Oh, baby, how you doing? Sorry if I just gave you the ick." So that definitely gives people the ick. Sometimes they say, "Oh, did you hear her? She was talking in a baby voice." Or "Did you hear that couple? They were talking in baby voices to each other." And it just gives me the ick. It just means it makes you feel like, "Ooh, I don't like that." It's cringy. Someone who brags about money, that kind of gives me the ick, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, it only matters that you're a good person. The next phrase is to catfish someone. This phrase has been popular for a long time, but it's still definitely relevant in the age of the internet. It's to catfish someone. So maybe you've seen the show Catfish. It's about people who create this online persona. They, present themselves a certain way online. Maybe they even present themselves as a different person online. Like pretending to be a really attractive woman, but really they're just some guy using someone else's photos. They're trying to catfish someone, so they're trying to get other people to believe they're this attractive woman, when they're absolutely not. When people are using dating apps, they look at all the photos, and they try to make sure they're not being catfished. So they try to make sure that the person online is going to be the person they actually see in real life and not just a catfish. So this slang is kind of tricky to use. It's kind of interesting, but definitely relevant. I use this slang phrase so often that I actually kind of forgot it was slang. So when we say the OG, it means original or stands for original gangster, but we just use it to say it's the original version of something. So we might say, well, LeBron James is really good, but Michael Jordan is really the OG basketball GOAT. So it means he's the original basketball legend or GOAT, greatest of all time. If you don't know that slang yet, that's popular too. Or you might say, Nike is the OG of making good shoes. So if you like Nike sneakers, they've been around for so long. They were kind of the first popular sneaker, so that makes them the original gangster, the OG of sneakers. Here's another slang phrase that's been around for so long, but it's only considered slang recently because it's so popular. We use the phrase "it's giving," and then we kind of say a vibe. We don't say what it actually looks like. So maybe someone is wearing a beautiful red dress, you might say, "Oh, it's giving so chic and elegant," so those are adjectives. So they normally wouldn't make sense with this phrase. But when we use it in this slang informal way, we're just talking about the vibe the dress is giving off. Or maybe your friend is saying, "Okay, I'm rehearsing my presentation for work." And they seem very unprepared. You could say, "It's giving school project, unpreparedness," so you're saying, it's giving off the vibe of being unprepared. It's your feedback to someone about something. Maybe your friend is singing in the car with you, and they're singing so well, you might say, "Oh, it's giving Adele, your voice sounds so good. Your cooking really ate." You might be scratching your head right now thinking, what the heck does that mean? If you haven't heard this phrase yet, the phrase something ate, we say this when we want to compliment something that was done well or with style. You might compliment someone's outfit or clothing, and you might say, "You ate with that outfit. It looks so stylish." Or if someone performed really well, you could say, "Her performance ate," and again, if someone cooks really well and made you a great meal, you could say, "Your cooking ate." So it's a full compliment to say something someone did ate. If you feel like you can't use the phrase ate because, it feels just a little awkward. It's maybe too popular of slang for you, it's too trendy. You can use the phrase "it's iconic," or you can call something iconic. That outfit is iconic. Her cooking is iconic, her performance was iconic. Usually, iconic means something that was done in a way that was so good that no one could ever top it or do it as well. But we also just use it in our daily lives as slang to say something was really good. One phrase I love that I've absolutely been using for the past year is to say something lives rent-free in my head. So when you want to say something is constantly on your mind, you're thinking about something all the time. You can say, "It lives rent-free in my head," and it doesn't necessarily have to be literally something you're thinking about all the time, but it could be something you think about more than other people. Think about it. Maybe you have a song that you can't stop singing, and you say, "This song just lives rent-free in my head." Or maybe you're thinking about a really embarrassing moment in your life. Maybe you were at a party and said something very awkward. You could say, "Oh, I'm thinking about this embarrassing moment. It lives in my head rent-free." It just means you can't stop thinking about it because it was so embarrassing. And usually, when you say, "It lives in my head rent-free," you wish it would leave. It's like, think about when someone stays at your house. If they don't help pay rent or, pay for the house, and they've overstayed their welcome, you say, "I wish they would leave." It's like, I don't want to keep thinking about this, but it just either. So just impressive. I can't stop thinking about it. It's living rent-free in my head. I can't get rid of it. The last phrase I want to teach you. It's all about body language. When you give someone the side eye, it's just a look. You don't even have to say anything. Now we just say the phrase, and we don't even have to say anything else. This phrase just means, we're kind of judging you because what you're doing is either so weird, so annoying, it's just not good. Side eye. If someone says something very offensive, you could just say, "Side eye. I'm giving you the side eye right now." Or literally, maybe someone is talking and being disruptive while someone else is giving a presentation. You could say, "Hey, I'm giving her the side eye right now, because that's just so rude." So you're judging, but you're judging for a valid reason. When you give someone the side eye. To make a beeline. When someone walks or even just kind of runs. Or even just quickly walks towards something very directly, and they're very motivated to get there, sometimes we say they made a beeline to get there. For example, if you're really thirsty and you walk into a building, you might make a beeline for the drinking fountain. You're moving very directly, and you have a goal to get to that drinking fountain immediately because you're very thirsty. When people used to go to Black Friday sales, especially in the United States, there were these crazy deals on really big TVs. They would get a really good price on a TV. So people, as soon as the doors to the store opened, they would make a beeline, and sometimes people would even start running to get to the TVs. To get off scot-free. Notice the spelling and the pronunciation of this phrase because many native speakers actually mispronounce or misspell this phrase. Okay, so the phrase is scot-free. If you get off scot-free. This is a phrase we use to say you do something bad or even illegal, and you have no consequences. Many people think if you're rich, you can get off scot-free with any crime because you can kind of pay your way out of everything. Maybe you were late for work one day, and your coworker says, "Were you late this morning?" In that case, if you say, "I got off scot-free," it means you had no consequences, and maybe no one really noticed you were late to the office. In English, when you've been talking to someone either over the phone or over email for a long time, we use this phrase. The phrase is to put a name to the face. So after talking to this person virtually or over the phone, you finally get to see what they look like. Maybe you haven't even seen a photo of them. You might say, oh, it's nice to finally put a name to the face. So it's finally nice to see the person I've been talking to or emailing for so long. Another way we commonly use this phrase is if we have a friend, and they either talk about someone in their family often or another friend often. They have lots of stories about this person, and you finally see them and meet them. You might say, oh, I've heard so much about you. It's nice to put a name to the face, so it's nice to see you in real life or in person, as we often say in English. Instead of saying we really enjoyed something in English, we use the idiom we got a kick out of it. We probably wouldn't use this phrase if it was just something very nice, like, oh, I got flowers from my husband. I got a kick out of it. The phrase is a little out of place there. It's more for something that we find kind of funny and enjoyable, or we're amused by it. For example, maybe your friend sends you a video, and in the video, they're doing a funny TikTok dance. And you didn't just think it was good or just funny, you really enjoyed it. It brought you, kind of laughter and a lot of joy. You could say, I got such a kick out of your TikTok dance, or if our kids find something amusing and funny, we might say, oh, the kids got a kick out of that. So you'll hear this phrase all the time when something is really kind of fun, funny, and enjoyable. It's a very positive phrase. Have you ever felt like when you have a lot going on, someone will tell you something important, and you immediately forget it? Well, you can use this English phrase. You can say, it went in one ear and out the other. So instead of retaining the information in your brain, it's like it just immediately left as soon as you heard it. Or someone else, doesn't seem like they're listening. And you say, hey, what did I just tell you? And they say, I don't know. I could say it, well, it seems like it's going in one ear and out the other. So it's not sticking in your brain. You're not going to retain the information I just told you. You could tell someone, hey, make sure you write this down. I want to make sure you can remember it. And it doesn't just go in one ear and out the other. So that's how you'll hear this English phrase used. This next word is kind of a slang word, kind of an idiom. It's a way native speakers say they are slightly annoyed, when we're slightly annoyed or peeved, not super dramatically annoyed or peeved. We say I'm miffed. I'm just miffed. I'm really miffed. My neighbors just keep making noise late at night, so you're kind of annoyed. You're not going to call the police or anything, but it's slightly annoying. Or maybe your friend had a party, and they didn't think to invite you, but maybe you're thinking, well, they're not a very close friend. I don't know, I'm kind of miffed. It was inconsiderate. But it's not the end of the world. It's just you're slightly annoyed if you use this word miffed. Miffed. And again, it's quite informal, but it's used often in English. Often, when charities want you to donate money to their cause, they try to find some kind of eye-opening statistic that makes you realize, what problem they're trying to solve and how big the problem is. For example, if a food bank, meaning this is a place where people who don't have money just to go to the grocery store, or they feel like they don't have enough food to feed their family, if they're trying to raise money or get donations, they might say, isn't it eye-opening that 13% of households in the United States experience food insecurity or lack of food? So this is just a way we use this word. There are tons of other ways you can use this word, but basically, anytime you learn something very surprising, it really changes your perspective. So maybe you think, oh, everyone in the United States has food. It's not a problem. Well, it might be eye-opening to realize there are people who are hungry, who don't have enough food. So we just use this phrase to say it changes our perspective. We learn something, and if we call it eye-opening, it means it changes our mind, our perspective. And you can use eye-opening in a positive way too, to mean you learned something that really surprised you as something positive or really good news. Often, when you want to say you're ready in English, you'll instead hear native speakers say, I'm all set. Are you all set? It means the same thing as are you ready? If there's a storm in the forecast, and you want to make sure your house is going to be safe during the storm, you have lots of emergency supplies, you could say, we are all set for the storm. It means we are ready or prepared for the storm. So often, people say all set instead of I'm ready or I'm prepared. And also, people say all set when they want to say they're finished, done, or ready to go. If you're at a store and you're ready to pay, you might walk up to the checkout counter, and the worker might ask, "Are you all set?" You could say, "Yep, I'm all set." It just means I'm ready to pay. I'm all done. You can definitely get confused if you hear a native speaker use the next phrase, and you don't know how we actually use it. So if you say you have a history with someone, it means you have a troubled past. Something happened in the past with this other person and you that caused some problems. Maybe you don't currently have problems, but the history might come up and cause a problem in the present. To bait someone. Okay, so we think of the word bait, to bait something, as trying to catch something, like we're hunting, or if we're going fishing. If we put a worm on the hook, we call the worm our bait, and we're baiting the hook. Now we use this verb also in this idiom, we say we bait someone. If you're intentionally trying to provoke someone either into anger or into annoyance or irritation, so you say, "Hey, stop baiting them." If you have someone who is very argumentative, and they get very worked up or heated about politics specifically, which many people do these days, and you just intentionally always bring up politics, someone might tell you, "Can you stop baiting them?" Like, "We don't want to argue about politics right now, please stop baiting them." It just means stop trying to provoke them or make them angry. One phrase that is a very rude action is to blow someone off. So this would be when you ignore someone or you just cancel plans. And you don't do it in a really respectful way, or you don't even give the person any reason at all. You might say you just blew them off. So often, if we have, some chore we're just not doing, we don't feel like doing it right now, we might say, "Oh, I'm just blowing off the dishes right now." It means I'm just ignoring the dishes I'm supposed to wash in the kitchen. I'm ignoring the chore. I'm supposed to do it, but I'm not. Now, this phrase is used towards people too. If you were supposed to meet up with a friend over the weekend, and you never texted them or called them, and they were waiting for your call, you might say, "I just kind of blew them off," or maybe they texted you, and you didn't respond. That would be blowing them off. If someone ignores you or doesn't really invite you, you might say, "They blew me off. So I'm kind of mad at them." To get over something. Okay, so we use this phrase to say we've recovered from something. The most common things we use this phrase with are we say, "I have gotten over a breakup." It means I don't have those bad feelings anymore, or "I got over my depression, I was depressed, and now I'm not." Or you could even say, "I got over my sickness. I got over a cold." It means I recovered from the sickness or the cold. If you have a devastating loss, maybe in sports or just, maybe at work, you could say, "I was upset, but I got over it. I finally got over the loss from yesterday," so it just means you move on. You no longer feel the bad emotions or the sickness or whatever it is when you get over something. This next idiom is a great way to describe someone who is very carefree. Maybe you meet someone, and they just don't really care about problems, they just seem so happy all the time. And they never seem worried or stressed about anything. You say that person has not a care in the world, or you could say they don't have a care in the world. We use this phrase to just literally say this person is carefree and doesn't worry about anything. Often we say children just don't have a care in the world. They just run around and have fun all day. So it's a positive thing, usually, to describe someone as not having a care in the world, but it can be used to say someone is kind of choosing to be ignorant towards problems, or we're almost insulting them by saying they're so dumb or so stupid they don't realize the problems that are going on, so usually, it's used in a positive way. But you could say, "Oh, look, everything is going so wrong, and they're just walking around like they don't have a care in the world." See how that's more negative? So definitely depends on the tone and the context with this phrase. Why did the chicken cross the road? Ready for the punchline? To get to the other side. So usually we say the punchline of a joke is the funny part. Obviously, that's an old boring joke. It's not very funny. It was just my example for today. But we can also say a person is the punchline if they're the target of ridicule or, everyone's just kind of laughing at them. For example, often something happens in the United States, and when people are embarrassed, they might say, "Oh, we're just like the punchline of the world, everyone's laughing at us." So this phrase punchline is used to mean the funny part of a joke, and it can mean the joke is really funny. Maybe a comedian really says something funny. You could say, "That was such a funny punchline." Or it can be used negatively to say, "You know, I feel like the punchline right now, like, I don't want everyone laughing at me." There are so many different ways in English to say, "Do you understand me?" One way we use to mean that. Like, "Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you following along? Are you listening?" You can say, "Are you with me? Are you with me right now?" Or if you just want to tell someone, "Yes, I'm listening, go ahead. You're talking," I could say, "You go ahead." Said this phrase to be with someone, it doesn't always mean literally. You're sitting with them. It means you understand and are following exactly what they're saying. If you're a professor and a lecturer, you might say, "Is everybody with me right now? Are there any questions?" And usually in that case, people will either ask questions or just say, "Yeah, we're good. Go ahead." Often people come up with excuses to get out of doing something. We use this phrase to get out of doing something to say someone is avoiding either a responsibility or they're avoiding an invitation or going somewhere or doing something by using this phrase. So maybe you don't get along with your family, and you say, "Well, I'm going to have to work on the holidays, but I don't mind getting out of going to my family's for these events." So you're avoiding seeing your family, and you're getting out of it by saying you need to work or you're going to work. This kind of reminds me of the movie 4 Christmases. If you've never seen it, it's with Vince Vaughn. It's very funny. And Reese Witherspoon, and they don't like seeing their families every year for the holidays, so every year, they say they're doing this charity work, and it's a total lie. And that's how they get out of going for Christmas, until one day they can no longer get out of it, so they can no longer avoid their duty, their responsibility, their obligation. When we use this phrase to be able to help something, it's used in an interesting way, so obviously, we use the word help here to mean we can control it. So it's different than how we normally use the word help. So if we say, "I can't help it," it means I can't control it. I keep coughing, I can't help it. Sorry. So it just means you can't control it. Sometimes in English, we might say, "Well, that's not going to happen, if I can help it." It means if I can control it. So this phrase is used to say, we're not going to let that happen. If I can help it, he won't be here. It means I'm going to control it, and I'm not going to allow that person to be in this room. This next idiom I selected from my daily conversations. It's kind of funny because you might think if you use this phrase to bow down to someone, you think of medieval times, like bowing down to the king, or in ancient Egypt bowing down to the pharaoh. But really, we just use this phrase to bow down to someone to mean like, "Oh my gosh, you did such a good job," so it's funny how we use it. So if someone makes a crazy delicious meal, I might tell them, "Oh, I have to bow down to, like, your dinner was so delicious." Or maybe you think someone has really great fashion, and you just admire their fashion choices, the way they dress. You could say, "Oh, I have to bow down to you. You look so good every day. Your fashion is amazing." So it's used in a much more informal way to say we really admire someone, or they do a really good job if we're bowing down to them. One phrase I use all the time is, "Hey, reach out." So reach out can mean reach out for help or just reach out if you want to talk, which could be helpful in some way. If you have a friend, and their family member just passed away, and they're going through a difficult time, you might tell them, "Reach out if you need anything." So it just means, make sure you ask me if you need any type of help, or feel free to reach out if you just need to talk sometime. It just means tell me if you need to talk about your feelings. Sometimes, if I see a friend I want to catch up with out in the neighborhood, but I don't have a lot of time to talk to them, I might say, "Hey, reach out to me next week if you're free." It just means try to contact me. Usually send a text or call. A really cool phrase that English speakers insert into their speech and conversations all the time is beyond belief. So this phrase is used as an intensifier. To say something was incredibly good, or beautiful, or great, or incredibly bad, rude, disappointing. I was disappointed beyond belief. It just emphasizes how disappointed you are. Or I was impressed beyond belief by your English. It means I was very, very impressed. So this is a really great phrase just to intensify something very positive or very negative. One thing about me is that I'm a go-getter. Once I set my mind to something, it's very hard to talk me out of it. So to talk someone out of something means to try to convince someone not to do something. So you give them lots of different reasons why the thing they want to do is bad. Or just not worth their time, or it's silly or stupid. So I say it's hard to talk me out of something, so it's not easy to tell me not to do something I've already decided to do. If you have a friend who wants to quit their job, but they don't have another job lined up or any kind of backup plan, you might say, I tried to talk him out of quitting until he at least had a backup plan. Another phrase I used there was, I am a go-getter. This is a really good phrase to use. If you're in a job interview and you want to just convince people you're very motivated, you're going to go after the goal, or you're going to go after success very easily, you might say, I am a go-getter. Often people learning a new language are go-getters because it's a very difficult task, and they have to be very self-motivated to get through it. They're total go-getters. And finally, when you set your mind to something, it's saying that you're setting your mind either on a decision, an opinion, or a goal. So when I set my mind to a goal, it means I have to achieve that goal, or I'm going to be very disappointed in myself. I will sacrifice a lot if I set my mind to a goal, just to try to achieve it. If you set your mind to learning a new language with lots of practice, you can become fluent. It means as long as you're very serious about the goal, you can do it. If you set your mind to an opinion or a decision, it means you're going to stick with it, or you're going to believe it, and it's going to be very hard for someone to convince you not to believe it anymore or not to do it anymore. Years ago, I ran a half marathon. Now, this might not be very impressive to anyone because really, it's only a half marathon. It's 13.1 miles or 21.1 kilometers. But for me, I never believed I was a natural-born runner. When we use this phrase natural-born, it means someone who's good at something. It seems like just from the start of their life, they were born being good at this thing, so just naturally talented. We use this phrase really often. If we're complimenting someone's talent or skill, you could say, you are a natural-born leader. It means you're just very good at leading people. People listen to you, you have great authority. Or you could say, you are a natural-born artist. It means the art you create is so good, it can't be taught, that skill cannot be taught to other people. Or if someone is really good at telling stories, you could compliment them and say, you are a natural-born storyteller. So my goal years ago for completing my half marathon was to try to do it in under 2 hours. So this is quite an ambitious goal, but it's also very common. It's a very common time people want to try to run a half marathon in. And we call this a sub-2-hour half marathon. And if you're wondering how fast you have to run to achieve this, it's about 9 minutes and 10 seconds per mile or 5 minutes and 41 seconds per kilometer. So something sad about this story. It's a little sad, I fell short of my goal time. I was really happy just to finish, again. I don't think I'm a natural-born runner, so this is something that took a lot of hard work and training. But those extra 4 minutes after the 2-hour goal I set, they haunted me for years. So when you say you fell short of a goal, it means you just didn't reach the goal, you just barely missed your goal, and it's kind of a softened way to say you just didn't achieve your goal. If you were at work, and your company has a sales goal or some kind of project completion goal, and you didn't meet that goal, you could say, oh, we just fell short, or we fell short of our goal. It's, again, a nice softened way to say we didn't meet our goal. You can use the phrase we missed the mark in the exact same way. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. That's a really good phrase to add to your vocabulary. So I missed the mark. I fell short, and then I said those 4 extra minutes it took me to finish the half marathon really haunted me. When we talk about being haunted by something, I said, I was haunted by those 4 extra minutes it took me to finish the half marathon. It means we're kind of troubled or preoccupied by something. In this case, I'm preoccupied. I'm always thinking, oh, if I just ran a little bit faster each mile, I could have achieved my goal time. So usually, when we're haunted by something, it means we have some kind of negative thoughts or some kind of traumatic thoughts, or just, something a little bit that has bothered us for a long, long time. Maybe you were in some kind of car accident in your life, and you're haunted by nightmares, thinking about how bad of a situation that actually happened to you. I'm very sorry if that's the case, but this is just an example of how something negative or scary in our life can haunt us. It haunts us in our nightmares and our dreams. Or maybe you made a decision that you now regret. Maybe you decided not to go to college, and you look back and think, wow, that would have been a good opportunity at the time. You could say, oh, my decision not to go to college has haunted me for many, many years. So now, speaking of the past and how it haunted me a little bit. Of course, I'm proud I ran my half marathon, but now in the spring, I have a new goal. My plan now in the spring is to complete my second half marathon. I've actually been running for the past couple of years. I've completed some shorter races that weren't as long as a half marathon, 5 Burmese Chats, 10 Burmese Chats, some shorter races in that range, and I've actually been running faster than my goal pace for the half marathon, which makes me believe I can run that fast. Now for the half marathon, if I put the training in. Now this goal is easier said than done. So many times we say we put the time in, we put the hard work in, and we put the training in. It just means you exert the effort towards something. You can say you can achieve any goal as long as you put the work in. These types of phrases are really common when we're just saying someone needs to actually work hard and do the work that's required to achieve something. We put the work in. You can use this phrase in another way. You might say, I wanted to get dressed up for work, but I didn't feel like putting the effort in. So again, it's just like the hard work. It's doing the hard work. We say we put the work in or we put the effort in, and a really common phrase in English is easier said than done. This phrase is just used to say a goal is actually quite difficult, even though it's easy to say you want to achieve it. We use this in our everyday English all the time. When we talk about these little things that we know are good for us, but they're just hard to do. For example, quitting social media sounds like a great idea, but it's easier said than done. All the social media apps are created to be addicting. They're created to, take up our time. So it's not as easy as just saying, I want to quit. Or sometimes it's hard to stay calm or it's hard to stay positive in a situation. Maybe you have a job interview that you're very stressed and worried about, and someone says, oh, just relax. You might say, well, that's easier said than done. It's easy to say, just relax. But when you have these feelings, and you have this big interview coming up, it's hard to actually put into practice. So the interesting thing about this half marathon I want to complete now is that I ran my last half marathon so long ago, and at the time, I didn't have as many responsibilities. I didn't have my family, my children. I didn't have a home I owned. I didn't have my business. So with all these life changes, it makes it a little bit harder to actually train for a half marathon. But where there's a will, there's a way. This phrase, again, very common in everyday English. It just means where there's desire or determination, someone will be able to do something. So this phrase is very popular to sound positive, sound ambitious. Maybe you have a similar phrase in your native language that translates quite similarly. When we say there's a will to do something, it means there's a strong desire. So if there's a strong desire, there's a way we can do something. That's where the phrase where there's a will, there's a way comes from. It's a positive way to say we can do it. So my kids are still quite young. Only one of my children goes to school during the day, so I, with my 2 youngest children with me, and part of my training plan has been adapted so that I have a double stroller, and I take my 2 youngest children after I drop my oldest son off at school, and we go for runs in the double stroller. It's a heck of a workout, and my kids are real troopers. If you caught that phrase, it's a heck of a workout. This is super informal in English, but people like me say it all the time to just emphasize it's really a heck of a workout. It's hard. Or we also use this, modifier to say something's very impressive. That is a heck of a pair of shoes you have there. That's a heck of a haircut there. It's kind of used by older people a lot, but you'll hear it again by younger people all the time. And then I used the phrase "my kids are troopers." So when we say someone is a trooper, this is an old slang phrase, super common. People my age and younger use it to say someone endures something difficult, and they're very resilient, and they don't even complain. So, of course, my kids would rather just be playing or go inside and be warm. But they're troopers. They don't complain, they just go along with mom for a run in the double stroller. And again, it's a heck of a workout because pushing my 2 children while I run. It's heavier, and it creates some resistance when you run. So if you want a heck of a workout, have kids, get a double stroller, and go run. I do this a few times a week. I try to run about 5 times a week right now to achieve, building up my endurance and strength. And probably 3 of those runs each week are done with my children. Right now, the weather is getting colder where I live, so it makes it a little bit harder to find the motivation to get out for my daily run. When we use this phrase to find the motivation, it just means to get inspired or have the incentive to do something. I want to clean my house, but I just can't find the motivation. It just means you can't find the reasons that make you want to do it, even though you say you want to do it. It's like you feel lazy. You feel like it's easier just to sit there than get up and start cleaning. Many people have a hard time finding the motivation to do things they know are good for them. Like cleaning, exercising, and eating healthy. It's convenient to eat junk food. It's convenient just to lay on the couch, but you have to find the motivation to want to do the things that are good for you. Because I'm trying to make it easier on myself to get out and really put in the work and train, I invested in some warmer workout clothes for myself, and I get my kids bundled up in top-of-the-line, little snowsuits, likely meant warm suits/boots, hats, mittens, just so they're super warm. We can talk about investing in something, meaning putting money towards it. Or we can say, we're investing our time into something as well. Remember, in English, time and money are often used in the exact same way in phrases because Americans, we view our time as our money. If you use the phrase top of the line, it means the best, and usually it's said about something you can buy: top of the line shoes, top of the line furniture, top of the line clothing, top of the line winter gear, like I said here. So it means clothing designed to keep you warm. And another phrase you should definitely know is what it means to get bundled up. So if we have a little baby, and we wrap them in blankets, we say, "Oh, they're all bundled up warm," or we might say, "I'm going to get all bundled up to go outside." It's annoying to put on lots of clothes to stay super warm. Let's start with disappointment and excitement. If you want to say you're excited about something, you might have learned in English class to say, "I'm delighted" or "I'm excited." And remember, when I teach you phrases that maybe are just boring and a little bit more formal in this lesson, it doesn't mean they're wrong or you should never use them. We're just working on advancing our English, becoming advanced English speakers, and having a variety of phrases to use that sound natural and help you express yourself even more. So don't get upset or sad. If I say a phrase you've used a lot, you can keep using that phrase, of course. Now let's imagine we got some exciting news. Maybe someone in our family is pregnant, or someone's getting married, or maybe just someone, has great success in life. You could say, "Oh, I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped for you. I'm so pumped for the news." This is more of a slang phrase to be pumped about something or be excited, but it's really, really commonly used. So I would encourage you to try to integrate this into your vocabulary. Another phrase that's very easy to use is just to say, "I couldn't be more excited," or if you're excited about someone else's news or something else. You could say, "I couldn't be more excited for you." This is a really easy, natural phrase to start using. Instead of just saying, "I'm disappointed." This is, quite harsh, but it's also just very formal, and it's very overused. You could say, "It's a bummer." A bummer is something that makes us feel disappointed or sad, or we could use the phrase, "I feel let down." Or you could use it as a noun and say, "Oh, this is such a letdown." It's a bummer or it's a letdown. Both of these phrases are used to say you're disappointed, and they're more idiomatic, everyday expressions that just sound more natural, and we use them. It's a bummer. It's a letdown. I'm bummed. I'm let down. Again. All mean disappointed without just overusing the same expression. I'm disappointed. Let's now describe some actions using our new natural phrases. If you're describing someone doing something very efficiently, this is a very formal way to describe that they did it, quickly without wasting time or wasting effort. Instead of just saying that, which sounds so formal, we can try this new phrase. If you want to say someone did something efficiently, you can say they did it in no time. When we use this phrase in no time, it describes something that happened quickly. Like it doesn't literally mean no time, just a short amount of time. Or it can describe something that was surprisingly faster than we expected. Maybe you go to a new, really popular restaurant, and you think you're going to have to wait a long time for a table, and really you only had to wait 5 minutes, which didn't feel like a long time to you. You could say, "Oh, we got in no time." It just means faster than we expected. So this phrase in no time, it's used very often, and it's used in a lot of different ways just to say quickly or faster than expected. If you want to tell someone, "Hey, something's going to happen sooner than you think," you can say it's going to happen in no time. My kids are going to grow up in no time. It just means faster than I expect. Sometimes it can get quite boring to say good job. You did a good job. Hey, good job. It feels like we repeat ourselves a lot. So here's a new phrase you can use that's very natural. You can instead say, "You nailed it." Nailed it. This is a slang phrase. It's more informal, but you can use it in an everyday office environment, workplace, or just casual conversation. I nailed it. It means I did a good job. Let's talk about money. Because money is an important everyday topic, and the rules around talking about money in America might be different than other English-speaking countries or different than your country. Now, we never in America, in the United States, say someone is poor, mom, unclear word, we might, but it's considered very rude. So instead of just saying, "Oh, they're poor, they don't have very much money," this can be kind of a taboo topic. It's kind of rude to say. We will say, "Oh, they're on a tight budget." This is considered, a softened way to say they don't have very much money to spend. Or if you're going somewhere to buy something, maybe you're going to buy a new car, but you just don't have very much money to buy a new car, but you need to get where you need to go. So you need to go buy one. You might tell the salesperson, "Yeah, I'm on a tight budget." It literally means I don't have very much money to spend. Maybe say, "I only have $2,000. And that's a tight budget, meaning don't show me a car that costs $5,000 because the budget is tight. There's no room for extra spending, so this is considered a more polite way to say, I'm poor, I don't have much money, or I don't want to spend a lot of money on something, instead of saying, "Well, that's expensive, it's expensive. It costs a lot of money." You can show that you're surprised by how much something costs by using this natural phrase. You can say, "Oh, it costs a fortune." How did you afford that car? It costs a fortune. Or gosh, groceries. They cost a fortune these days. No, groceries. They are expensive. Relatively. We're used to groceries being cheap, but it seems like the price keeps going up. And really, it's not a fortune, a real fortune. A fortune would be, a huge amount of money. But for us, it's just using this phrase to show we're surprised by the actual cost of something, that it's more than we expected. So if you want to say it cost a lot of money, just say, "It costs a fortune." Now, when you're speaking a new language and trying to make friends or just get along with people, you want to agree with them in a way that sounds genuine, sounds real, or you want to show enthusiasm about something that doesn't feel like you're just pretending. You have to go beyond just learning the simple phrases "I'm excited." "I can't wait." "This is going to be good." Let's learn some natural phrases that you can actually use in your conversations to build relationships and show that you're happy for people and show that you're excited about plans. The phrase "I'm looking forward to it" is perfectly fine. I will definitely use that phrase, but let's take it one step further to how native English speakers will actually talk. Instead of saying "I'm looking forward to it," if they're excited about, Let's say their friend's birthday coming up, you might say, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it, I can't wait. So really, I use the same inflection in both of those phrases to show I'm excited. But if you say I can't wait, it just kind of shows you're really anticipating it. It's a dramatic way to say you're excited about something, but it's quite genuine. You're showing you almost feel like you can't wait for the event to happen. So again, you don't even have to say I can't wait. You can just say, can't wait. Hey, are you going to the party tomorrow? Yeah, can't wait. So really short, really informal, but very effective and naturally used. Let's keep talking about this imaginary friend's birthday. Maybe another friend says, hey, do you think we should get our friend Kelly new earrings for her birthday? She might really like them. You can say, I'm all for it, instead of just saying, yeah, I agree, that sounds like a good plan, or yeah, that's good. You can use this phrase to show you agree with them. And you think they came up with a good idea? Yeah, I'm all for that gift. I'm all for that plan. Using this phrase, I'm all for it, shows complete agreement. When someone has an opinion that you agree with and you believe it's true, you could just say, I think that's true, I agree that's true. That's a little boring, a little simple. So let's go beyond again. We're going to try the phrase there's no doubt about it. Or you could say there's no doubt about that. It just means you agree. It's true. That's a really good opinion. Maybe you're talking to your coworker, and they say, I don't think we can finish this project on time, we just don't have enough time left. And our boss, is really pushing us too hard. And you could say, oh, there's no doubt about it. You are right. We don't have enough time. So it shows agreement. It shows you believe what they're saying. Let's talk about discussing time. So these next two phrases are going to help you not only sound more natural and just have a variety of phrases to use, but we're also working on softening speech so we don't sound so harsh, because one thing that's very noticeable even about advanced English speakers is that they're not used to the indirectness of American English speakers. We're not as direct, and it comes across as rude. If you're a native speaker and you're just not expecting someone to say something so directly. So let's look at these two phrases. Okay, so first, maybe someone says, hey, can you help me right now? And you can't help them. You don't have time right now. You're busy doing something. Instead of just saying no, or instead of saying not right now, I can't, or saying, something like I'm busy, you might want to say, now is not the best time. This comes across as much less harsh to English speakers like me. It implies you're willing to help them later when you have more free time, and instead of saying, no, now is not a good time, it says it's not the best time. Unless it's an emergency. They will totally respond and say, oh, okay, I'll come back later, or I'll email you, or whatever it is. Maybe you're working on a project with your colleagues, and you're going to have to pause the work. Maybe there's some kind of factor with money, or just waiting to hear back from someone, and you need to pause instead of saying, there's a delay or we need to pause. Let's try this phrase. Let's put this on hold. If you put something on hold, it means you're going to come back to it, but you need to pause it for a moment. We talk about putting someone on hold when we're talking on the phone. Hey, can I put you on hold for a minute? It just means can I just pause the conversation and come back? Maybe I need to talk to someone in real life or whatever it is. Let's talk about getting things done instead of saying I'm working on it or I'm working on it right now. English speakers will say, I'm on it. This is just a shortened way, a more informal way to say we're going to do it right now or we are doing it right now. So maybe I'm busy doing something. And I ask my husband, hey, can you go check the oven upstairs? I'm cooking something. Want to make sure it doesn't burn. If he's going to go do that for me, he'll say, oh yeah, I'm on it. It just means I can do it. No problem. Instead of saying you're going to postpone something, you can also use this great idiomatic expression, and you can say, we're going to put it on the back burner. This just means it's not our priority right now. We're not going to work on it right now, but we're going to leave it for later. The idiom is let's keep it on the back burner. And if you want to say someone is good at multitasking, you could just say that. Of course, you could also try this idiom. You could say, he's good at juggling a lot of things at once. Or if you want to say you're working on many things or multitasking, you can use the idiom, say, I just have a lot to juggle right now. And of course, juggling is, the act of throwing balls in the air and catching them all at the same time. We use this phrase to juggle things all the time in English just to mean we're trying to do many things, either at the same time or just in our life in general. Maybe we have work, school, we have kids, family commitments. We're juggling all these things is how we use this phrase. I found that English learners use the adjective hasty to, say quick. Don't make hasty decisions or don't make quick decisions. But there's a really good expression you could use for this as well. You could try the phrase don't jump the gun. This just means don't make a decision faster than necessary because you could make the wrong decision if you don't wait long enough. Another thing that's important to know many phrases for is expressing certainty. You're absolutely sure about something. So instead of just saying I'm certain about it, or even I'm absolutely certain about it, American English speakers will say, oh, I'm 100% certain about it. This is such a common phrase you can use formally and informally. Another phrase that's not taught in textbooks is I'm willing to bet on it. I'm willing to bet that it just means you're certain. Now English speakers will take it one step further and say, I would bet my life on it, or I would bet my children on it. And of course, you wouldn't say this unless you were very, very certain about something. Now, if you want to say something is very likely to happen, you're almost certain it's going to happen. You can say, chances are it will happen. Don't worry. Chances are it will work. So chances are is a good phrase to use. Instead of saying it's highly likely, you mean the chances of something are good, or the probability of something is good. Chances are it will rain by the end of the week. If you're looking at the forecast and you think it's going to rain, you might use this phrase here. Next, let's work on some phrases that are good for giving opinions. If you believe something strongly, you can use this phrase, which is a little bit tricky and definitely not taught in textbooks. You can use the phrase I'm convinced that. So one conviction I have is that when people go to concerts and take videos on their phones, I'm convinced that they never actually watch those videos later. It just feels like you have to record because everyone else around you is recording. Maybe you agree with me on that, maybe you don't. But I'm convinced that it's true. So again, this phrase is used to say I strongly believe it's true, or I'm convinced that it's true. Often in English, instead of saying opportunity, just because, I don't know why, opportunity just sounds a little bit more formal. You might say it's a good chance. Instead of saying it's a good opportunity, it's a good chance. Or maybe you want to say it's a good opportunity to speak with someone important. You could say it's a good chance to speak with someone important. It sounds just a little bit more informal and everyday, so it's good to know that these two words can be quite interchangeable, opportunity and chance. Let's talk about relationships, and if you want more relationship phrases, I will also put a video on the screen where you can learn 50 new relationship phrases that, again, are really helpful. But if you want to say two people have a strong relationship, or they get along very well, and they know each other very well, you can instead use a phrase that's used more often and say they are very close, or you could just say they're close. It means they have a strong relationship. And again, they've known each other either for a long time, or they're just very familiar with each other. When two friends or even two family members don't talk much anymore, or they just, they kind of, maybe they still get along, they're still friends, but they just don't spend time together anymore. You could say they've lost touch. Oh, I've lost touch with many of my friends from school. It just means I haven't talked to them in a long time, and I don't have much of a relationship with them. Maybe you'd say hello if you ever saw them again, but you're not texting or emailing or doing anything with them. I found that English learners find it difficult to be polite and express just basic feelings because they get so comfortable just saying, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy about this. I'm happy or I'm sad, sad, I'm sad, I'm tired. So let's talk about some more advanced phrases you can add to your vocabulary. Instead of saying I'm happy, try the phrase I couldn't be happier. Maybe you ask, how did you feel about the interview? Instead of saying, oh, I'm happy, it was good, you could say, oh, I couldn't have been happier about how it went. And this is us advancing our English, just having a variety of phrases to use. Instead of saying I'm tired, you could say I'm completely wiped out. This is a really common idiom to say you're very tired, and instead of saying I'm feeling sad, a really common phrase that's a little bit less direct but shows you're very sad is to say I'm struggling. And this implies you're struggling with emotions or feelings about something, because these English phrases have been around for so long. Many of them are very, very wise advice. They're things you should live your life by. They're things your grandma might have told you, your mom might have told you. And many of these phrases translate very directly into other languages. Or we get these phrases from other languages, so that should help you. If you already know this phrase in your native language, use it in English. The first one is don't put all your eggs in one basket. The symbolic meaning of this classic idiom is don't risk everything by relying on one option or one plan. The classic common example where you need to know this phrase is if you're investing in any kind of stock market. You don't want to put all your money and your savings into one stock or one fund, because if things go badly, all your eggs are going to break, and that plan won't work. You shouldn't use all your eggs in one basket. You want to divide them up to mitigate the risk. So if you want to tell your friend, you should come up with an alternative plan. You shouldn't rely on just one thing. Maybe they say, I don't need to go to college because I'm going to become famous. You might want to say, well, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's important to get an education, and you can also pursue your dreams. A very popular phrase in business and necessary for everyday English conversation is the ball is in your court. Now I like to think of this phrase as a basketball phrase, but really there are so many different sports where this idiom kind of comes from: tennis, racquetball, maybe even pickleball. If you're not familiar with pickleball, it's very popular right now in the United States. It's a racket sport. But this phrase, let's get to the definition, it means I've done my part. I've made my case. It's now your turn to respond. Now maybe you're trying to make a deal at your job, and you present your case. You present why the person should buy from you, and you're waiting for their response. You might say, well, I already talked to them. The ball is in their court. It means all I can do is sit back and wait. I'm waiting for their response or waiting for their decision. So this idiom is super helpful. You'll hear it daily in American culture, a blessing in disguise. So this phrase means that something that initially seemed like a bad event turns out to be good, because usually, it teaches you something, or it opens up some kind of path you wouldn't normally have taken. A classic example is if you lose your job, but then you start working in your dream career field, it forces you to make a change, and you're much happier. Losing your job was a blessing in disguise because something that is, very unfortunate. It's very bad financially. Turns out to be something good. It makes your life happy, better. Sometimes you don't get selected for an opportunity that you were very excited about, but it turns out to be a blessing in disguise because maybe the person who, takes the opportunity doesn't do very well. Or, when you look back, you realize you weren't ready for that opportunity. And if you had taken it, it would have prevented you from doing something else good in life, so it can be a blessing in disguise. If you don't get the job you wanted or don't get the opportunity, this is one phrase that is so important to know. It's to bite the bullet. So this phrase in English means you need to do something very unpleasant in order to, get something. For example, I hate going to the dentist. I absolutely hate it. Sorry if you're a dentist watching this, but it's just so unpleasant to go, have your mouth open, have them scraping your teeth and everything, and especially if you have a cavity. Oh, it's terrible. I just have to bite the bullet and go, though, because otherwise, I wouldn't have the opportunity to take care of my teeth and my mouth, and it's just very important to have good oral health. I have to bite the bullet, though. I have to gather the courage to go because it's so unpleasant that I'm kind of scared and very nervous. Sometimes you might have a phone call you really don't want to make. Maybe you have to tell someone bad news. But you just have to gather the courage and face what you need to do, even though it's hard. So you'd say, I just have to bite the bullet and get it done. Even though it's hard, it's scary. It's difficult. You have to gather the courage, and you just have to do it. That's what this phrase says, to bite the bullet. And to help you remember this phrase comes from the idea that long ago, when people had surgery, maybe they had a very bad injury from war or something. They'd have to bite down on something hard. I remember stories about people actually biting down on bullets. Usually, it was something leather, but you have to bite down on something hard in order to endure something painful. It doesn't have to be literally painful, though, to use this phrase. It just means being difficult. You have to bite the bullet and just get it done. I've heard this phrase at every job I've started and every university class I've attended. The phrase is to break the ice. If you don't already know how to use this phrase, it just means you need to start a conversation. You need to make it less awkward. You need to get to know new people either in a classroom or at work or wherever it is. So another common way we use this phrase is when we have, little games or little conversation starters that are supposed to get people talking to each other, and they're supposed to help people get to know each other. We call them icebreakers. A good way to break the ice at a party and get comfortable talking to people is just to tell a joke or give a compliment. Anything just to start a conversation will help break the ice. This next phrase is such a classic. Every cloud has a silver lining. I don't normally say this full phrase, but I normally say there's always a silver lining, meaning there's some kind of positive aspect that can be found even in the most negative situation. One silver lining of trying to save money and eat at home, even though it's hard to cook all your meals, you might eat healthier than if you were eating out at restaurants. So that's the silver lining or the positive aspect. In that quite difficult situation, if you're trying to save a lot of money, one phrase I can totally picture someone older and wiser than me saying is actions speak louder than words. This phrase means that even though people promise things and say they believe certain things or will do certain things, if they don't actually do those things, or, they act kind of mean, and it doesn't match their word, it doesn't really matter. Their actions are more important than what they promise or what they say they'll do. Maybe you have a friend who says, I'm a really good friend. I'll always help you out. I really care about you. But every time you ask for help, they come up with some reason why they can't help you. And then, you'll just think, well, actions speak louder than words. Maybe they're not that good of a friend. This next phrase is really powerful and makes an awesome impact when you say it. If you want to say someone described something accurately, perfectly, or totally correctly, you can say you hit the nail on the head. This phrase is really powerful to use when someone is asking, a group of people, maybe in a workplace or an office setting, why is this happening? What's the problem here? How can we fix it? And someone describes the problem perfectly or says, maybe we're just not working hard enough, or we didn't do this. And the person who asked the question might say, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. Thank you for figuring out exactly why this is happening. So it's a really powerful phrase to use when you want to compliment someone on their skills at figuring out a problem or finding a solution to a problem. This next phrase always makes me think of the Titanic. Of course, the phrase is it's the tip of the iceberg. So obviously, an iceberg is, the big piece of ice in the water, like in Titanic or, the Titanic ship hit an iceberg because, when you see the tip of the iceberg, it looks like a small piece of ice, but really it's much bigger if you look under the water. So this relates to when we use this phrase in our everyday conversations, there's a problem that seems small. You're only looking at one part of it. But if you look at the whole problem or if you step back and look at the situation, the problem is much bigger. And what you're describing is only a part of it, or it's the tip of the iceberg, so some people might say, well, it's a really big problem that we use. Plastic straws are really bad for the environment. And someone who looks at, all the wasteful things and all the plastics we use, single-use plastics, might say, well, the straws are just the tip of the iceberg. The problem is much bigger. This next phrase is very common all over the world. It's the phrase to kill two birds with one stone. Let me know in the comments what phrase you have that means the same thing. How does it translate into English? In English, when we want to say we solved two problems or we, did two things with one action, we say we've killed two birds with one stone. Maybe you need to buy some groceries at the store. And you might tell yourself, well, if I walk to the grocery store, I'll get my exercise in, and I'll get my grocery shopping done. So I'll kill two birds with one stone. There are so many examples where you can use this phrase, but basically, it just means you achieved two goals with one action. Has anyone ever told you not to count your chickens before they hatch? This is such a common American English phrase. It means basically just don't rely on something happening before it's final, before it's official, or don't rely on success if something isn't actually happening. Don't just assume it will happen. For example, some people think they're going to get married, so maybe they start shopping for wedding dresses, and they're ready to go buy a wedding dress. Well, you shouldn't count your chickens before they hatch, meaning you should wait until you're officially engaged and actually planning on getting married. You shouldn't do that first. Or maybe you tell yourself, well, I just got a new job. I'm going to make so much money, so I'm going to go buy myself new things. Well, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Wait until you get your first paycheck and actually know how much money you're making before you assume you're rich and spend all this money. Don't assume you're going to be successful before it actually happens. The classic phrase is don't count your chickens before they hatch, because, you have all these eggs. But they might not all turn into chickens. I wonder if this next phrase was your first English idiom you ever learned. Because for so many of my students in the past, this was one of the first idioms they ever learned in English. Let's learn it now if you haven't learned it yet. The phrase is it's a piece of cake. If you don't already know, when you describe something, usually a task, as a piece of cake, it means it was incredibly easy. That's how easy this idiom is to use. It's a piece of cake. Instead of saying something was really easy, maybe you took a test, and you feel like it was so easy, only took you 10 minutes. You could say, well, that test was a piece of cake. It just means it's so easy. This next phrase is said so many times in American TV shows and movies. When someone works late into the night, we say they are burning the midnight oil. Maybe you have a project deadline coming up at work, so every night after most people are asleep, you're up working on your computer. You could say, I have really been burning the midnight oil on this project. It means you've been working late every night. My friend who is not a native English speaker just learned this phrase. And she speaks English so well, so I was excited to finally have a phrase I could teach her. The phrase is Rome wasn't built in a day. This phrase just means important things take time. So if you have someone who is frustrated that they haven't done something or they're not perfect at some kind of skill, you could say, well, don't worry, Rome wasn't built in a day. It just means important things or very successful things take a long time to achieve. English fluency takes a lot of practice. Just remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Have you ever accidentally let the cat out of the bag? If you haven't heard this idiom before, it's probably very confusing this phrase to let the cat out of the bag. It just means you reveal a secret or you reveal a surprise. Maybe you wanted to surprise your kids with a trip. Maybe a trip somewhere like Disneyland, and you accidentally show them, you're packing for the trip, and you show them you have, some kind of mouse ears. They might ask, are we going to Disneyland? And you might say, well, the cat's out of the bag. Yes, we're going to Disneyland, or whatever the surprise is you revealed. You can say the cat's out of the bag, or don't let the cat out of the bag. If you're trying to tell someone something is a surprise. And keep it secret, I want your opinion on the next phrase, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We use this phrase when we want to tell someone they can't enjoy two conflicting things at the same time. I think of many money situations when it comes to this phrase. Maybe someone says, I wish I could just go on vacation all the time, but I want to make a lot of money. You might say, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to make a lot of money and go on vacation, you're going to have to work really hard. Or someone might say, well, I'm trying to save money, but I'm really going to buy a new purse. You might say, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to save money, you probably shouldn't buy a new purse. So we use this phrase when we're just telling someone that, doing this one thing, they're not going to achieve this other thing as well. When you have some top secret information, you might not want to spill the beans. This classic idiom just means to reveal a secret or reveal secret information. I think of when people announce pregnancies or engagements. Maybe they tell one person, we're pregnant, we're expecting a baby, but they say, don't spill the beans to everyone because we want to keep it secret for some time. We're going to reveal it soon. We'll spill the beans later. It just means reveal the secret information with one phrase that is really easy to use in your vocabulary. It's the phrase better late than never. This just means it's better to finally do something, even if it takes a long time. Or maybe it just happened very late than to never do it at all. For example, maybe you know someone, an adult, and they've never known how to cook in their life. And finally, they learn how to cook, and they make a meal, and they say, look, I finally learned how to cook. You could, respond, well, better late than never. You're 30 years old. You should know how to cook. So it's just, maybe a little bit snarky, rude remark if you use it that way, or, if someone says, sorry, I'm late, I finally got here. I had such bad traffic, and you say, oh, better late than never, we're so glad you made it. So you can use this phrase, to say, well, finally, I suppose you finally did this thing. Or you can say, don't worry about being late, or don't worry about it taking so long. I'm glad it got done. Better than if it never got done at all. Better late than never. Have you ever heard that bad things happen in threes? Of course, this is just a superstition saying, when something bad happens, maybe a couple more bad things are bound to happen. You might believe this. You might not, but I also wanted to teach you the phrase when it rains, it pours. So often, when we use this phrase, we're not talking about actual rain, though we could be, but we're saying when bad things happen or problems arise, it tends to feel like many different problems happen all at once. For example, maybe you lose your job, your car breaks down, and you get sick all in the same month. You would say, well, when it rains, it pours. Feels very overwhelming, like many bad things and problems are happening to me. Here's the last phrase of today's lesson, you reap what you sow. This phrase is very useful, and I find it to be very true advice in life. It just means you will achieve what you work for. When we think about farming, we sow seeds in the spring, and in the fall, when we harvest. Usually here in the United States, we get the crops. We reap what we sowed in the spring. So it means, whatever we planted, whatever we worked hard on earlier is what we will end up getting. So we say in life, you reap what you sow. It means however hard you work towards something is what you will achieve. Even if, you worked hard on this thing a long time ago, eventually you will see the results. And you will be successful, but you reap what you sow. If you didn't work hard in the beginning and at the end, you won't see the product, you won't see the success. You won't see the results. So just you will receive the results of your actions. This phrase really just says hard work is an important aspect of success. Okay, so this is where learning English from a textbook and learning English from a teacher like me, who's going to show you how you need to understand these phrases culturally, differs quite a bit. Take the phrase, I don't believe you. This phrase on the surface just seems to mean you don't believe what someone is saying. For example, we might use this if someone says something that doesn't seem true. Maybe it seems far-fetched, like a story. They say, well, I saw Michael Jordan at the coffee shop the other day. This person, Michael Jordan, is so famous, he would never be at a local coffee shop your friend would visit. So you might say, I don't believe you. Another way we use this phrase that's not as similar to that is to say like, I don't believe you. If someone does something very kind and helpful, maybe someone brings you flowers, you say, I don't believe you. Thank you so much. Just like, I don't believe how nice you are, and it's used in a genuine way to show appreciation. If someone helps you out in some small way, you might say, I don't believe you. You're so helpful. So it's a nice thing to say as well. And it's similar to saying, I don't believe how kind you are. Now we can also use I don't believe you to express a more negative emotion. For example, say someone forgets to show up for a meeting. You could say, I don't believe you. That was so important. I can't believe you forgot. It's like, I can't believe your forgetfulness here. So you'll hear this phrase used in many different ways besides just stating you don't believe something is true. You might not believe someone's behavior because it's so extreme, either very kind or very negative, like they're very forgetful. They're very rude. I don't believe you. You're so rude. It's used in different ways. Like that. The next phrase I wanted to teach along with I don't believe you, because it's so similar. If you say unreal. Now this can express that something is so cool, so beautiful, or just so awesome that you think it couldn't possibly be real. You say it's like not real because it's so great. Unreal. I love this view from this mountain. It's unreal. Or if you want to express, again, disappointment in something or disappointment in someone's behavior, you could say, unreal. I can't believe you didn't bring your money. It just means you're surprised the person forgot their money. Again, it's saying your behavior is unreal because you forgot something so important, or you did something so rude, and just like saying I don't believe you, you can say unreal. That was so nice. Thank you so much. These two phrases are used quite similarly here, and they also have just the normal basic way you would assume these phrases are used. But you'll hear them used very differently in different cultural situations. Many of the phrases I teach, I often hear on podcasts, and I write them down in my notes app on my phone. That's how I get ideas for phrases that might be confusing for English learners. One phrase I've been hearing quite often since I wrote it down because I need to teach it to you is the phrase all jokes aside. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways to use this sentence structure here. So it's quite useful when we're transitioning away from something funny or a funny topic or joking about a topic, and we want to speak more seriously. We'll say, all jokes aside, it was really sad what happened. Whenever a serious sentence follows, you say all jokes aside, like we're putting the humor aside in this conversation, we're done talking about the humorous topic. We're going to move on to the serious aspect of this. You can use this in a couple of other ways. Two other ways that came to mind for me are to say, well, money aside, I would really love to travel someday. It means if I don't consider money, if I put the worry about money aside, this is what I would love to do. Another way I use this phrase is I say feelings aside. It's like if we don't consider our feelings about something, or we don't consider someone else's feelings about something, what's the most rational choice to make in this situation? I really like these next two phrases in the lesson. The first phrase is to go as planned. Usually, when you describe something and say it went as planned, it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. You make a plan, maybe in a professional setting for an event. And you say, I hope everything goes as planned. It means I hope everything goes well, and it kind of implies also that you can adjust and adapt a little bit, but just, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes as planned. So usually we use this phrase as a positive way to say nothing unexpected or bad happened. How did your party go yesterday? Well, it didn't go as planned because there was a big storm, and we had to move everything inside, but it was okay. See how that phrase to go as planned? It didn't go as planned is seen as something negative, but again, not the end of the world because we can adjust and adapt. Another phrase we use similar to this. We say, it went smoothly. And this is a little bit more informal just to say everything went smoothly. It means everything went as planned. A phrase that almost means something opposite, but almost sounds like it could be similar is to say everything is going as well as can be expected. Now this phrase is used to be delicate in a situation that probably isn't going to go very well. So you're expecting something bad to happen. Many times. If someone has a sick family member, and maybe they're nearing the end of their life, you'll say, you know, how's your grandma doing? And you might say, well, everything is as can be expected, possibly meaning your grandma is very sick, and she's not doing very well. Again, this is used in more negative situations, or if you just don't think something's going to go well in general. Maybe you have a job interview, and the night before this interview, you got absolutely no sleep, and maybe you're a little bit sick. And someone asks the next day, "Hey, how did your interview go?" You might say, "Well, it went as well as can be expected." It means it didn't go that well. You didn't expect it to go well because of the circumstances surrounding you going to the interview, being sick, and having no sleep. So we use this phrase in more negative situations. And I would say this phrase is good to use because instead of just being super negative and saying, "It went terrible, I did terrible, it went really bad," you're kind of softening the blow a little bit, and you're using more, soft language, softened language to say something didn't go well, but it met your poor expectations. If you've ever wanted to make something work, and you worked so hard, but eventually you just have to give up because you realize if you put any more effort into this thing, it's just not going to be successful, you can use this next phrase. The phrase is to cut your losses. So when someone cuts their losses, it means they quit. They end something. They just decide it's never going to be successful, and they're going to stop working now because they don't want to put any more work into it. So maybe after months and months of trying to make a restaurant successful, the couple who owns the restaurant cuts their losses. They don't want to put any more time or money into this business because it's just not profitable or successful. So cutting your losses means quitting and not putting any more effort into something you've already worked very hard on. A phrase that is so common, especially in the English-speaking workplace, is to get someone up to speed. We use this to say we need to inform someone about everything they missed, or maybe they recently started a job. You need to inform them about what's been happening and how they can do their job better. You can also use this phrase, if someone was just absent for a couple of days from class, or from a meeting, or from work, you might say, "Oh, since you missed, the last meeting, I'll get you up to speed." It means I'll tell you everything you missed. So you can use fill someone in and get someone up to speed very similarly. This next phrase, TMI, stands for too much information. If you didn't already know, this phrase seems so modern and trendy, like TMI, you're oversharing online. People with social media just spread TMI, too much information, they'll overshare. But really this phrase TMI, too much information, has been around for so long, and it's used so often and in everyday conversation. And American English speakers like me, we really do say, "Okay, TMI," we don't say that full phrase. We just shorten it TMI. I don't need to hear that. It means it's just too much information. Usually, someone is sharing some kind of gross detail of a story or just too personal. Maybe they're talking about their spouse, and they're just sharing way too much information. Like, you don't need to know that. Or maybe someone just had surgery, and they're telling you about all the gory, gross details of their surgery. You might just tell them, "Okay, TMI, stop." One phrase I think you should know is the phrase to be in a haze. If you say, "I was in a haze last night," it just means maybe you were tired and a little groggy. You're not paying great attention. You're not thinking your best when you're in a haze. Sometimes when people travel, they get jet lag, and the next day they're just in a haze all day. It means they're kind of tired, and their brain isn't working very productively or creatively. Another way we use this word haze is we say something is hazy if we can't remember it very well. Could say, "I don't remember when I was a kid very well. I kind of have some hazy memories of playing with toy trains," or whatever your memories are. You can't remember them super clearly. You call them a hazy memory. So a good phrase that you've probably heard a lot but maybe aren't sure how to actually use is day to day. This phrase refers to your daily schedule of life or your daily routines. So someone might ask, "Oh, what do you do for work?" And you might say, "Well, I'm a dentist," or "I'm an accountant," or you might have some really interesting job where the person doesn't really understand what you actually do. So they'll ask, "Oh, what does your day-to-day look like?" And you might describe your schedule for the day. Or you could say, "Well, I actually work from home. So my day-to-day is I work on the computer most of the day. And I take breaks. I go for walks. That's kind of what my day-to-day looks like." It's almost the exact same as saying this is my schedule or this is what my routine looks like. So the phrase table scraps, which I heard the other day, its literal meaning refers to, what's left on the table after everyone eats. Maybe you feed the family dog the table scraps. That's how we just call that leftover food. This phrase. You might want to think about it more figuratively as well. When you're fighting for something or, you're trying to get something that is just the leftovers. Maybe at work, everyone takes their responsibilities, and what's left over is what you get. You might say, well, I just get the table scraps. It means, the unwanted things that were left over. This next phrase is from the get-go, and for some reason, when people say this phrase quickly, this is just my personal opinion, I hear from the get-go, like that green lizard, the gecko, but it's from the get-go. It's just saying from the very beginning, and we often use this phrase to describe the tone or the attitude of someone or some event at the very beginning. So for example, when I decided to start my own online English teaching business from the get-go, my husband was super supportive. So I'm just kind of describing his attitude here as supportive, which is wonderful. I love my husband, and if you want to describe something that was negative at the beginning, and it was just kind of doomed, you could say, well, it started out bad from the get-go. It means from the very beginning, it was bad. And you usually use this phrase to say it started out bad and it continues to be very bad. The wedding was doomed from the get-go, and it turned out to be a very bad event. Like, everything just keeps going wrong. Moving on to a more lighthearted, positive phrase, we can use this phrase a hidden gem to describe something that is a best-kept secret. We really use this phrase often to talk about, great coffee shops that are very quiet and undiscovered, or a restaurant that doesn't seem too busy or popular, but you just think it's great. It's a little hidden gem for me. I have a Chinese takeout restaurant in my town that is a hidden gem. It's not very busy or popular, but every time I get food, it's delicious. And my family loves the food. So something that's very popular or well-known. You definitely wouldn't describe it as a hidden gem. If there's a town or a park your family loves to visit, and it's not very popular or known as a tourist destination, you could also describe the town as a hidden gem. These next two phrases in my mind used to kind of be the same, but then I started thinking about how I actually use these phrases and how other English speakers use these phrases in conversation. And the one differing word in these phrases really makes quite a big difference. So the phrases are knocking at your door or knocking on your door and knocking down your door. So when we say, someone is knocking on your door, we usually talk about some kind of opportunity just being politely presented, after this opportunity is knocking on your door. It just means it's presented. It's available. If you have a college degree, many opportunities are knocking on your door. If you're a good singer, many people are knocking on your door wanting you to perform for them. Okay, so it's more polite, it's softer. Now, when we say knocking down your door, it's a little bit more aggressive. We're saying people are clamoring. They're very excited to get whatever it is you have, whether it's a skill, whether it's an actual thing. Maybe you make a dish that's so good. People are knocking down your door to have dinner with you. So this is, again, a figurative idiom. They're not literally coming to your door and knocking, but they're calling you, hey, want to have dinner? Want to cook dinner for me next week, because you're just such a wonderful cook. So let's talk about learning English to describe this next phrase. The phrase is to bridge the gap. So we use this phrase to mean we're connecting two different people or two different ideas. You can bridge the gap between two different cultures. It means just kind of bring them together, unite them so they're not so separate or disconnected. When you learn English, you usually start learning in a classroom, and when you try to speak English with people, it can be quite difficult because you only learned formal English, and you just haven't had that much real communication practice. So to bridge the gap, many people choose TV shows where people speak more naturally and have more natural intonations than just their English teacher or their textbook. Or they watch YouTube videos like mine, or listen to podcasts so that they can use phrases in their actual conversation. So they're bridging the gap between their English they learned initially in the classroom, and they're trying to bridge the gap to actually speak English in their real world. So these two types of learning are kind of separate, but you can bring them together by doing things, again, like podcasts, YouTube videos, TV shows, and then eventually getting out in the world and not being shy about communicating. People who are biracial or have a multicultural family, they can bridge the gap between their two cultures by bringing everyone in their family together and sharing things they enjoy so that their cultures aren't so separate. And I think this is really important. Whether you live in a household with many different cultures or you just live in a neighborhood with many different cultures, which is true for so many places in the United States, we really need to bridge the gap between our neighbors. Finally, if you want to study this video again, I suggest you start from the top. This phrase means you just start over from the beginning. We use this phrase very specifically to mean we're going to try something from the beginning and do it all over again. Or maybe we're going to play a video or a movie from the beginning. If you say start from the top, you're saying go back to the very beginning. How did you do on today's English test? Are you advanced? Are you still intermediate, or are you pushing into master? Let me know in the comments. I want to know, where are you? I'm on the Aquila levels of English scale. And if you want to learn over 200 new words and phrases, just like the ones in this lesson, I want you to visit EnglishWithKayla.com right now. With the coupon code UPGRADE, you can get an exclusive discount on my course. It's a 6-week vocabulary course, and if you don't want to pay for the course right now, make sure you check out one of the videos I'm putting on the screen now that will also advance your vocabulary. Thanks so much for watching this lesson with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.